Inside Book 2 of The Rim Country. So, right now I've got 26 chapters mapped for Book 2 of The Rim Country. 10 of these are already drafted, and I want to pull back the curtain a little bit on what's actually going into writing this book. Things like research, characters, the mistakes I've had to fix. But before I do that, if you haven't read Book 1 yet, some of what I'm about to show you is going to spoil it for you, perhaps. So consider this your warning and consider it also your invitation. So the Rim Country set in Arizona Territory in the 1880s during the real historical Pleasant Valley War, one of the deadliest family feuds in American history. Book one, The Invitation, follows Nora Callahan, a widow homesteading in the middle of two feuding ranching families, the Tewksburys and the Gramps. Nora's got this gift. She senses danger and intention before it shows itself, and she carries a ledger with her to record her insights that becomes almost a character in its own right. It's how she tells the truth to herself when everyone around her is choosing sides. By the end of book one, Nora's redefined what it means to live in the place between two warring families. You might think that this is all about staying neutral, but the characters learn that in reality, it's about the obligation to witness accurately, to see clearly when everyone else has an incentive not to. If that sounds like your kind of story, grounded, gritty, not sanitized, but still about conviction and courage and faith holding up under real pressure, that's book one. And it's out now. The link's in the description. Book two, however, is called The War, 1887, and it is set in the most violent year of this feud. It picks up the question Book one only started to raise. If the place between means witnessing accurately, then what happens when both sides you're witnessing have slipped into evil? That's the engine of this book. Structurally, I've mirrored Book one's architecture. There's 5 parts, 26 chapters. Nora still anchors most of the book, but now I've opened it up a bit. Rogers, the itinerant preacher, gets his own chapters now. So does Tallreed, the Tonto Apache woman, who becomes one of Nora's most important sources of counsel in Book One. Tom Horn, the historically notorious outlaw, gets chapters. Will Jasper gets chapters. Roberto Morales' household, which is Roger's home base, gets real page time too. Now, that's a deliberate choice. Book one was Nora's story, and it was closely held. Book two is what happens when a single perspective isn't enough anymore, because the war doesn't fit inside one person's line of sight any longer. So here's something I don't think most people see about historical fiction: how much of the work is just staying honest to the record. Right now, I'm currently verifying a detail about the Verde River to San Carlos March of the Tonto Apache people because I let a reference get more historically specific than I'd actually confirmed. I caught it fairly quickly, but now I'm chasing down primary sources before I let it stand. This kind of happens a lot in my writing. I also found out partway through drafting that I'd been calling one of my historical figures Jim Stinson throughout, when the actual historical record has him consistently as James Stinson. Oops. But an easy global find and replace early on fixed it and made it correct. That's the kind of thing you catch on a second pass, and it's worth catching because these are real people and real history. Even the invented characters get scrutiny. I don't get to just add a name to the page and move on. Every invented character, every place gets flagged and checked before it's treated as permanent. But it does leave my Google search record looking pretty strange at times. That rigor's the same standard book one went through before it was ever published. So when you pick up the invitation, you're getting a book that's already been through this thorough process, not a rough draft. There's a couple rules I hold myself to across this whole series, and I think they matter to why people respond to these books the way they do. There's only one point of view per chapter. You're never in two heads confusingly at once. No on page violence exists. I know that death happens, but it happens off the page in these books, and the psychological heaviness is what falls on what's left behind, not the shock of the moment. And there's no lecturing. If there's a theme, forgiveness versus reconciliation, grievance passed down, accountability without due process, it comes through in what characters say to each other, not through me stepping in to explain it. That commitment is why book one reads the way it does. It's not sanitized, but it's not gratuitous either. It trusts and respects the reader. So, like I said, right now I've got chapters 1 through 10 drafted. Chapter 10 actually closes out part 2 using the ledger device, the same device that carried so much weight in book 1. After this, it's global editing pass that follows completion of all the draft and then going through everything that I flagged. There's recurring phrases I want to cut. As it turns out, I use the word something far too often, and I always catch that at this place. There's also a naming decision I still need to make for one of Tall Reed's family members, and of course, that historical verification that I mentioned earlier. I'll keep bringing you along as it comes together, but I want to be straight with you. Book two isn't for sale yet. Book one is, however, and if this story is going to find the readers it's for, people who want conviction and courage and sacrifice and real stakes instead of cynicism, that starts with book one getting into hands now, not waiting for book two to be finished. So, if any of this, Nora, the Ledger, the Rim, the Feud, sounds like something you'd want to read, go get the invitation. It's not on Amazon, actually, though. It's my very first novel that I've made the decision not to sell on Amazon. Instead, you can find it at my own toddnewman.com bookstore or my publisher's bookstore, Desticciato Books. Links are below, and if you've already read it, leave a review. It's the single biggest thing that helps a book like this get found. So, thanks for watching. Book two updates are coming as the drafting continues. Subscribe if you want to be there for it. See you next time.